Did you know that the Ocarina of Time development team visited Guantanamo Bay when coming up with the concept of the water temple? Rumor has it that they wanted to torture people with this temple. Now, I personally don't believe this unit did that because I just came up with it in this last sentence, but there's no denying the fact that people believe the water temple is quite infamous. For the full background, the water temple is the third of 5 temples in the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. When you become an adult by drawing the Master Sword out of the pedestal of time, you begin your journey to free the 6 sages, or I guess 5 because those assholes are already freed, by defeating monsters in the 5 secret temples. Now, these temples are amazing. They are the best levels video games have to offer. If you don't agree with me, you can feel free to suck my balls. The water temple is a unique one of the bunch as it has several challenges that rubbed players the wrong way, making it quite the infamous level. I thought it'd be kind of fun today to look at all these issues and see if the water temple truly is as infamous as everyone makes it out to be. If you don't find that fun, well, that's fine too. Feel free to click off this video and jump out the window because I don't care if you don't find it fun. Let's go. Let's get this list off on the right foot by switching our boots. And then switching them again. And again. The swim mechanics in this game vary between sinking with the iron boots and floating with the Kokiri boots. To progress to the 3-level temple plus a basement floor, you are constantly switching these boots. It wouldn't be as bad as if the boots were like a regular item, but instead they are equipment, so you are constantly going to the main menu, pausing the action. For the record, this was actually changed in the 3DS version, but we got this game back in 1998 in the Nintendo 64 version, and that certainly had the problem present. And the swim mechanics for Ocarina of Time aren't great, but it'd be a lot more manageable if you didn't have this portion of it. For a game design that is basically constant action, you're constantly putting a pause on it when you're doing this. It's kind of like that awkward time put on the condom in the process of making whoopee. If you have to keep constantly pausing the whole whoopee process, then you would have completely whooped up the whoopee. So yeah, I'd say the boots make this dungeon pretty infamous. The boots aren't the only thing that are constantly changing. In order to swim and traverse in the entire dungeon, particularly in the main room, you will be switching the water level. At 3 separate spots in the dungeon, you can play Zelda Lullaby in front of the engraved Triforce that will change the water from the lowest, medium, and highest levels. The dungeon's layout greatly varies in the water level and allows all these different paths to be open depending on said level. Like you're changing the water level more than like a date changes their mind about meeting me for a second time. Which I tell ya, that happens a lot. You don't change as much as you change your boots. And kinda getting back some of the key location of the dungeon is part of the puzzle itself. But you still change the water level way too much. This is another reason why it's an infamous temple. Not as bad as the boots, but I'd say it's still infamous worthy. Is that even a fucking expression? Zelda dungeons have the best layouts of any level out there. With there's so many levels that are just dull, straight lines a player has to explore, these dungeons allow for so much more variation, and it can really help maximize the enjoyment of the dungeon. Sometimes the layout of the dungeon itself is the puzzle, which I always do kind of find awesome. The water temple isn't my favorite layout of a Zelda temples, as it does have some flaws. With the multi-leveled map design, it can be kind of confusing which rooms lead to what. I don't think it's impossible, but when trying to explore rooms you haven't visited, it can be kind of puzzling just how to get to them. Also add in that you need the water at the right level to actually explore said rooms, so you could be running in circles for quite a while. The dungeon is yet another one where you need small keys in order to progress. You need 4 before you face Dark Link, and then 2 afterwards for a total of 6. And trying to get all those right locations can be a bit of a pain. That said, I don't think figuring out the layout is unreasonably hard, and there is some enjoyment to it. Of all my reasons, I don't think this makes it infamous, but instead more famous. Actually, maybe not as far as famous, but it puts it in the middle of those two. I will say there is one problem with the map layout that deserves a subsection of its own. Watch this clip real quick. This is the first time you raise the water to the middle level, and this is in the 3DS version that shows you a specific path that opened up to get a small key. This came out 13 years after the original game though, and this path wasn't exactly obvious to players when they first got the game. Of all the small keys you need to find, this one right here is the most commonly missed one, and for good reason. Once down there, it isn't hard, just fight a few enemies and that's kind of it. The bigger issue is knowing how to get down there, as there is a hole that opens up when that platform floats to the top. The map tells you there's a path down there, but it's not really clear how to get to that path. So it's possible to find this, but it's also very possible to just completely miss it. And this room isn't very accessible. You are only in here because you just raise the water to the middle level. And after that, you pretty much leave it. So it'd be kind of just like how my coaches treated me when I was growing up. I was very easily overlooked. For many watching this video, I think they would have expected this to come up at some point as a reason why the dungeon is infamous. And I'd probably say this has got to be the biggest reason. No great Zelda dungeons is without a dungeon boss, and many times a mini-boss. The mini-boss is a really neat idea in this dungeon, as is Dark Link. The toughest battles are the ones against our inner demons. Believe me, Oh, the demons are winning. The easiest way to win this fight is just to use Din's fire when he's up close. 10 hits and he's done. But if you don't want to try to cheat, you can just try to fight him straight up. Which is awkward because he pretty much matches your every move. And as fights go, is not a bad one, but it just gets kind of stagnant. You constantly swing your sword to try to hit him, and he's probably going to block most of them, so it just kind of becomes a bit of a dull fight. I will say this is not really a big issue, it's the main boss I'll get more into. And what is scarier than fighting water? But not a hurricane or tsunami, like actually scary water. No, we're talking just a pool of water. Maybe you can't swim or something, or your cousins used to bully you by drowning you for the fun of it. Wasn't very fun, let me tell you that. But the dungeon boss in the water temple is Morpha. It's basically two tentacles that emerge from a pool of water, and it's controlled by this nucleus. How to beat it is you use your long shot to grab the nucleus out of those tentacles and hit the nucleus 10 times. Doing so defeats the boss. Again, there is a way to cheat, which makes this dungeon boss a little dull. If you stand in the corner of the room, the tentacles can't hit you. Long shot can't reach the nucleus at some point, so eventually you do beat the boss. That is boring though. The problem is if you try to be more adventurous and run around trying to get the nucleus, it's kind of hard to lock onto it, and the tentacles are just going to grab you and completely destroy you. They do 2 hearts of damage each time they get you. So there's a lot of great boss fights in this game. I can't say this is one of the better ones. Oh, that said though, does this make the temple infamous? I don't really think so. So we've just gone over 5 different points. 3 of them make the temple infamous, and 2 of them, I guess, are kind of on the fence. So I think that's enough reason right there. This dungeon's infamous. It's definitely been labeled correctly by all these other players. And don't get me wrong, this is still an awesome game, and this dungeon is still actually pretty good in itself, but it definitely is infamous, and definitely deserves that label.